Iran is one of the oldest nations in the world, with a history dating back tens of thousands of years. The country's first great city, Susa, was built on the Central Plateau around 3200 BC. In 559 BC, the Persian Empire arose in southwestern Iran and conquered the Mesopotamians and Egyptians. The empire eventually extended from the Mediterranean Sea to what is now Pakistan, but it was conquered by the Greeks in 330 BC. Around 260 BC, nomads called Parnai ousted the Greeks and ruled for some 500 years. The Sassanids came into power in AD 224, and in AD 642, Persia became part of the Islamic Empire. In 1501, the kings, or shahs, of the Safavid Empire began their reign. Home to 24 UNESCO World Heritage Sites for culture, Iran is scattered with ancient cities and ancient sites to capture the imagination of any traveler. With so many amazing historical sites to see, a fabulous culture to experience and the friendliest and welcoming people to meet, Iran is one of our favorites places to travel to. Abinay, known as the Red Village, Abinay is one of the oldest standing villages in Iran, situated on the slopes of Mount Carcas. Thought to be over 2,500 years old, Abinay is a living museum of Iran. The architecture, culture, ceremonies, language and clothing is well preserved from ancient times. The most striking part of Abinay is the red brick buildings, constructed of local stone, that melt into the stunning red mountainous backdrop. Ardebol. The name Ardebol comes from the Zoroastrian name of Ardabil, mentioned in Avesta, which means a holy place. A market center for a fertile agricultural region, the town is famed for its silk and carpet trade tradition, and the ancient Ardabil carpets are considered some of the best of the classical Persian rug creations. The city also offers its visitors warm mineral springs, which made it a popular resort for the rulers of Persia. Bam. Lying along the southern edge of the Iranian High Plateau, ancient Bam can trace its origins back to the Achaemenid period of the 6th to 4th centuries BC. Straddling the crossroads that once bore witness to the caravans of silk and cloth that passed through these desert landscapes. Isfahan. Isfahan Nesfi Jahan. Isfahan is half the world. So goes the old Persian saying, and without a doubt Isfahan's charms continue to beguile and fascinate visitors. Its magnificent mosques, palaces and bridges are some of the greatest examples of Islamic architecture in the world. Isfahan's golden age was under Shah Abbas I, who came to power in 1587 and made Isfahan his capital city. 87. Jalfa. Jalfa is located right on the border with Azerbaijan and was at one time a major Armenian settlement until Shah Abbas I moved them to Isfahan at the beginning of the 17th century. Kashan. Kashan has several ancient monuments. Most famous are the Mausoleum of Shah Abbas I, the 12th century Friday Mosque and the Safavid royal buildings southwest of the city center. Also interesting are the Aga Bozorg Mosque, which is a theological school, and the beautiful Fen Gardens. Kerman, home to a number of historic mosques and ancient Zoroastrian fire temples, Kerman's historic and cultural ties have seen it endure invasions by Abbasids, Sasanians, Seljuk Turks, and Safavids. A thriving center for Kharijite and Zoroastrian tradition, the city is home to the country's most comprehensive museum dedicated solely to the anthropology of Zoroastrianism. When Marco Polo visited Kerman in the latter years of the 13th century, it was a great center of trade and, whilst much of that prestige has faded, it can still boast international fame for its carpets and textiles. Things to see in the city include the Friday Mosque, the bazaar and the 17th century Gunjali bathhouse, which is now a museum depicting the hammam, bathhouse, culture which is still prevalent in the country. Mashhad, the capital of Khorasan province in northeast Iran and the second largest city in the country, Mashhad is best known for its beautiful pilgrimage shrine of Imam Reza. Mashhad means the place of martyrdom and is an extremely holy city for Shiite Muslims worldwide. It is where the eighth grandson of the Prophet Muhammad, Imam Reza, was murdered in 817 and has been a place of pilgrimage ever since. Dress in Mashhad should be particularly conservative. Shiraz is a city of sophistication and has always been celebrated as the heartland of Persian culture. It is the capital of Fars province and is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Shiraz came to prominence after the Arab conquest of Iran, and by the 13th century Shiraz had grown into one of the largest Islamic cities of the era. By the mid-18th century, it had become the capital, spreading out like a garden on the plains at the foot of the Zagros Mountains. Shiraz is synonymous with poetry and learning, as well as nightingales and roses, and, at one time, wine. Today Shiraz is a relaxed, cultivated city, with wide tree-lined avenues and enough monuments, gardens and mosques to keep most visitors happy for days. Tabriz. Dating back to distant antiquity, Tabriz is the largest city in northwest Iran and was once the Persian Empire capital. Its proximity to the Azerbaijani border has affected its history, and it was occupied several times by the Russians in the first half of the 20th century, including during both World Wars. Tehran is a modern, bustling, overcrowded metropolis with a population of 12 million people. It became the capital of Iran in the 18th century under the Qajar rulers, and despite the traffic and the pollution is well worth a visit. Dominated by the towering Alborz Mountains, it has a wealth of royal palaces and some of the best museums in the Middle East. Yazd is one of the oldest cities in the world and the center of the Zoroastrian religion. Zoroastrianism was the main religion across the Iranian plateau until the Arabs brought Islam to the people in the 7th century AD.